Healthcare costs have risen and risen and risen and risen. But I'm going to pick on Republicans. Republicans never fixed it. And then the ACA tax credits were passed in 2021, and there was a sunset date of the end of this year, and Republicans never made a plan for that. And I have been I yelled at Mike Johnson last week on our GOP conference call. By the way, I'm missing the call today. It's going on right now. And I hope that Mike Johnson is finally giving a single health care policy because the country deserves it, and it shouldn't be a secret. And I shouldn't have to go into a skiff to go find our Republican health insurance plan.
Maybe there is no plan.
You know what? You want to know something? That, I believe, is the truth. There's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of bills, but there's no consensus. And I think that's a failure. I do.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene is continuing her full-fledged public rebellion against Mike Johnson, House Republicans, and whether she wants to admit it or not, ultimately, Donald Trump himself. And here she really twists the knife, because The View, which is notoriously critical of Donald Trump, and he loathes them, and he's called them out and attacked them in tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet. They are perhaps his ultimate arch nemeses in the media. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on The View to express her concern and her criticisms of Trump's party. Again, whether she wants to admit it or not, this is a rebellion against Trump, and it's only getting worse. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play here. I want to remind everybody first, just again, I believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing this due to a combination of factors. I think she's personally pissed off at Trump about him undermining her ambition to run for Georgia Senate. I think she has genuine frustrations and disagreements with the current leadership of the Republican Party. I think she's also wise enough to couch her criticisms of the Republicans to avoid targeting Trump directly so as not to encourage his wrath, because she recognizes that he's the power now and she needs to ride that out. But number four, I think she's also contemplating a political career beyond Trump. Trump is 80, she's 50. What's life going to be like if and when he leaves office or passes away? So I think all of these things are creating the attempted an image rehabilitation tour that you see Greene on. Now, again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that we should trust her. I'm saying we should highlight what she's saying and continue to exploit and exacerbate the divide that she's helping create and exacerbate within the Republican Party. Use her, and we'll see where the chips fall in terms of whether or not she's abandoning her conspiracy theory, xenophobic, anti-Semitic past. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, let's draw attention to this division in the MAGA movement. Anyway, with that in mind, let's continue.
Yes, you've been outspoken about releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files to the public, including the names of individuals involved in his sex trafficking network. Now, Democrats have been calling for that too, along with some of the other Republicans, but most of your party is pushing back and stalling. Why do you think that is? Because if President Trump is not implicated in there, what is exactly being protected here?
I have no idea, but it seems like very rich and powerful men are being protected. And I will sign anybody's resolution, and I'll get on board with anyone's push to release those files, because this is about women, especially when they were teenagers, were victims of rape and sexual abuse by Jeffrey Epstein. And according to the victims, there's a list of men that they haven't released yet. They are afraid of lawsuits. They're afraid of it. And I said I would read the list for them on the House floor because I have speech and debate protection there. However, I also think that this is about all victims of human trafficking, children that are being molested or raped, any men and women that are held in some sort of sexual abuse situation. What does our government say to them if the government will not release the information on the most famous convicted pedophile in history?
So again, note how she's trying to avoid implicating Trump, but she's calling out, she's ultimately targeting Trump with this. Trump is the reason that the Epstein files have not been released. The reason that Republicans are not co-signing this discharge petition, the reason that there has to be a discharge petition in the first place, discharge petitions permit you to basically go around the leadership of your House. It basically says, hey, listen, we have a majority support for this thing, and you can't bottleneck it. You can't just refuse to bring it to the floor. It needs 218 signatures. Well, Mike Johnson is refusing to seat a newly elected Democrat, Adelita Grijalva, precisely because she'd be that 218th signature. So he's, basically trying to delay the inevitable and give Trump more time to try to pressure people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert or Nancy Mace to back away from this discharge petition. But Trump is, we all know it, ultimately responsible for this. He's the one ordering Mike Johnson kill this thing, prevent it from coming out. So why is he doing this? Well, perhaps we know he's in the Epstein files. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he's implicated in any crimes, but it could be embarrassing. And it could also be, in addition, it implicates people he likes or top donors of his or personal friends of his or whomever. But this is ultimately Trump's fault. And I will say, again, this is where Marjorie Taylor Greene has surprised me with her level of cunning, surprised me with her level of shrewdness, because this Marjorie Taylor Greene in this setting saying these words in this way, it's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde. She sounds eminently more reasonable than the Marjorie Taylor Greene of a year ago or 2 years ago. What's going on? Is it cynical or is it deliberate, and sincere? You be the judge. Let's find out.
So, Marjorie, conservatives were criticizing you for coming on this show. I think you mentioned it already, that there were a few. And you called them, quote unquote, I believe this is you, mostly weak Republican men. So, would you like to name names?
I think there's a lot of paid social media influencers. And I found it very interesting that they were the MAGA accounts, but they're all paid, and they all attacked me when I announced I was coming to join you ladies on The View. And I think that's very weak and pathetic. But when I talk about weak Republican men, I'm pretty much talking oftentimes about the leadership in the House and the Senate, and they're not getting our agenda done. And I've got so many bills. I have a bill you guys in New York would love. It would end capital gains taxes on the sale of your primary home. So if you've owned a house for a long time,
we used to have that.
So again, demonstrating some very shrewd diplomacy here. I mean, I guarantee you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I didn't do this. I didn't go back and take a look at her record of public statements, but I bet you she has said and co-signed some unhinged shit about the ladies on The View, but now she's breaking bread with them, and they're both sharing laughs and mocking Republican leaders like Mike Johnson, she says, in the House and the Senate. These are weak men. It's not good, folks. I mean, again, you talk about a twisting of the metaphorical knife. That's exactly what Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing. Here's another clip.
There seems to be a significant divide on the right over whether to give a platform to noted white supremacist Nick Fuentes. Many prominent conservatives like Ben Shapiro, Senator Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, they've spoken out against amplifying him. You two have had a complicated relationship over the years, but at a moment when anti-Semitism is on the rise, where do you stand on this?
Well, first, I'm not anti-Semitic, but I am critical of the Israeli government.
Well, I just mean domestically speaking, because a lot of Nick Fuentes' words are, he hits every group, but very much just Jewish people in general, not Israel, Jewish people.
Well, number one, I don't have to agree with his words on attacking people like that. However, as a lawmaker, I think it's incredibly important that I defend our First Amendment for every single American. Of course, that does not apply to death threats or anything like that. However, I think the most important thing we can have as Americans is our free speech, and it can be speech that I either agree with or completely disagree with.
Okay, so here's the thing. In a vacuum, that's a reasonable answer. So Nick Fuentes is awful. Ben Shapiro did dedicate an entire episode of his YouTube show to calling out Nick Fuentes. But the problem is Ben Shapiro is also awful in a different way, probably in lesser ways in many respects. And certainly Fuentes is anti-Semitic and Shapiro is not. Of course, I don't have much by way of sympathy for Shapiro's methods because Shapiro supported the movement which helped breathe further life into Fuentes, and Shapiro has demonstrated that he'll sacrifice his principles for the sake of political expediency time and time again, right? He supported Trump, and Trump had dinner with Fuentes, and Fuentes and the Groypers and Trump were inextricably linked for the longest time, and all these things. I mean, they've ratcheted each other up. So again, Shapiro needs to take culpability for that. He and other mainstream figures on the right for, basically opening the door to this shit. But again, set that aside for a minute. Marjorie Taylor Greene has said all sorts of unhinged anti-Semitic shit in the past. She says she's not anti-Semitic. Maybe she's not now, but she certainly was in the past, and she certainly said anti-Semitic things in the past. The Jewish space lasers thing, where she talked about how the Rothschild, which is a famous wealthy Jewish family, were somehow controlling space lasers and starting fires from orbit. That's an anti-Semitic trope. She went viral for it. Now, it's not anti-Semitic to criticize or even condemn the government of Israel. That's fair game. I think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal and profoundly corrupt. That doesn't make you anti-Semitic to call that out. But so I think she's kind of playing a bit fast and loose here. Oh, it's not anti-Semitic to call out the Israeli government. No, it's not. But that's not why people call you anti-Semitic. Again, I digress. Maybe this is a genuine progression in her beliefs, or maybe she's just bullshitting to try to sanitize her own image for the sake of winning more mainstream elections. Again, we'll get to that in a second. But I want to close with one more clip from, actually, the last thing I want to say on the free speech thing, which is she talks about how important it is to protect free speech, but her cult leader, Donald Trump, former cult leader, because again, she's been defying him quite publicly here recently. He's the greatest threat to free speech in modern American history. The libertarian free speech group, FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, back in April, their legal director said Donald Trump's war on free speech was unprecedented in scope, scale, and severity. Those were their words. And this is a group that has called out the Biden administration, the Obama administration, woke college universities. They've gone after things on the left all the time. And they're like, yeah, Trump's a lot worse. And that was back in April. So again, Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying this, and maybe she should be cognizant of the fact that her side is as censorious as any, if not more, much more. Here's another clip.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't, if I lived here, I wouldn't vote for Andrew Cuomo. I was very much against, of course, all these women came out with accusations against him, which I found pretty disgusting. And then the COVID lockdowns and all the people's parents and grandparents who died in nursing homes.
Wait a second, you would vote for a Democratic Socialist?
I would vote for the Republican candidate.
Curtis Sliwa.
Curtis Sliwa?
Yes, yeah.
Well, he hasn't got
That makes more sense, Joy.
Okay, so, there again, she is breaking from Trump because Trump came out and repeatedly endorsed Andrew Cuomo. And Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, no, I wouldn't do that, and here are reasons why. So listen, folks, again, I think this full-blown MAGA rebellion is fascinating. I will continue to signal boost it. We should all, even if we don't believe a single friggin' thing Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, we should all be signal boosting it because it further weakens and undermines and exacerbates tensions within MAGA. Could this be a genuine transformation? Yes, but it also could be a cynical attempt to basically de-radicalize her image and make her more palatable. Again, she wanted to run for Senate against Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff. And even Trump's own pollster were like, listen, you'll win the primary against any Republican, but then you're going to lose badly in the general because your radicalism is not palatable to a general electorate. Again, the Carrie Lake effect, right? So this could be her way of saying, okay, well, screw you. I'll show you. I will become more mainstream. I will moderate. I will become more palatable to a mainstream audience. And by doing so, I'm going to lead a rebellion against Trump. I'm going to engage in rebellion against Trump. And again, here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, MAGA cultist, sitting down and having a pleasant conversation with the women that Donald Trump hates the most, and that's the women of The View. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.